Hey, you guys, it's good to be back talking about French. We're a month down in the Well-Trained Mind Academy, and I thought this would be a really good time to do an update, as well as kind of a mini pre-review of how we feel about the Well-Trained Mind Academy and a few details from there. Now, the Well-Trained Mind Academy as a school, I have written a couple of things over the weeks to remind myself to say. One is this is a very professional school. They take communications seriously. They reach out frequently, especially to newcomers and onboarding at the beginning of the school year. There are multiple emails explaining how to log in to do a certain thing, or maybe something you don't want to do. There's a computer glitch, and if you do one thing, it might cause a glitch in another. And those things are helpful for us to know as parents so that it doesn't become frustrating the moment we're trying to log on, the moment we're trying to submit paperwork. And the staff and instructors are really responsive. The questions that I have asked, particularly about, I think for me, it was the parent side of the program and a certain type of login. And I received an answer easily within the day or the next day. And nothing is, to me, is an emergency. And so it wasn't a big deal that I didn't get a response within a couple of minutes. Also, something that is paramount to me is school expectations and student expectations. They take both things really seriously. And they have an onboarding. And during that time for a couple of hours, they talk to the parent, and then an hour later, they talk to the student. So I was online first with parents, listening to a teacher giving an intro of expectations and policy and just the basics of being a new parent to a school, right? And then an hour later, Morgan logged on and she had her own version, and there was some overlap, but it was directed for the children and directed to the children. And so that was really great, because Morgan initially was pretty nervous because this is a new thing and she's very young to be going to the school. But, there were other young kids too there. So we're not the only ones doing this, which is just great. Really made us feel kind of validated that we're doing this at such a young age. But that kind of intro into school the week before the class started really got Morgan feeling confident about the actual class, not necessarily the French. That came the first time she met her teacher, and she came out of that class just saying that she totally loves her teacher and she loves the course. And that was just really, really fun. So then they had a trivia. And so if you wanted to hang on and stay online, you could play the trivia with the teacher. And many students did. And this isn't just the French class, this is the whole school. And the trivia went on and on and on. And I think it was sudden death trivia. So you're kind of out once you miss it's an honor system. If you miss a question, then that's your score and you're out of the game. And then I think the winner would get a prize or something. I don't know what. We weren't a winner, but Morgan was close, and so she really enjoyed kind of knowing that she knew some of the trivia. So our teacher she has dozens of years of experience. She's a university professor, and she's got her PhD in multiple languages. She speaks, of course, English and French, as well as German and Spanish, and she teaches all of those things. So she also very clearly has experience working with younger children. The way she interacts with the students is just wonderful. I no longer sit in on Morgan's classes. I hung out the first two classes because I wanted to make sure Morgan didn't have trouble with the system. And I'm glad that I did, because she had a little bit of an audio problem the first class, and I think the second class there was our own system glitched and I had to reboot at least the website. And so I'm glad I did. But because I sat there, I got to see how the teacher interacted with all of the students, and that to me is my accreditation or the validation of knowing that Morgan's in a good class. Also, I had mentioned last year in one of my French videos that I had spoken at length with the director of world languages at the Well-Trained Mind Academy. And it was just wonderful hearing her take on languages and asking me about Morgan so that we could both determine if she was too young for French 1B, and also if she had enough experience to take French 1B and skip French 1A. So that conversation with her many months ago gave me a really good feeling about the class anyway. Now, Morgan's class meets an hour twice a week. She has homework every evening, so there isn't a night after class that she doesn't have homework, and Morgan prefers to just knock it out as soon as she's done with the class. She's already online, it's already fresh in her mind, And then after she does her homework, she gives it to me to scan in, or now she's starting to scan it in. And then she doesn't have to worry about the submission. It's already submitted and uploaded. She can spend the rest of the time between then and the next class practicing what she has learned as well. And so the next day, essentially, she doesn't have class, but she still has French with me. And French with me is the Duolingo that she needs to keep up every day, as well as her studying what she's already learned with her teacher. Now, one thing that I'm pretty clear about is I do not correct Morgan's French at all before she submits. One thing that I have done, though, is read it and kind of encourage her to write maybe a little bit more based off of what I know about her homework. And so I'm talking to her about more is more. And the more you give the teacher, the more you can, one, practice writing in French and conjugating the verbs and coming up with a vocabulary and learning how to spell it. But also you're giving the teacher more to read to know where you are in French. And it's just good. It's good practice. So that's the only thing that I have done. Now, after I've scanned it in and it's already done and uploaded, I might talk to her about watching out next time for making a plural instead of singular and stuff like that. I think that also the teacher had said that very soon there will be no English at all. Right now there's a mixture, especially if she thinks that one of the students isn't understanding it. But soon it will be entirely immersive. All of it will be in French, which I'm very excited for. Now, at the beginning of the class, they review their homework, and because there's so few of them, they all share what they've written, which is really cool. So each kid gets to share and talk and participate, and that's a great way to get the child to speak so that they're not having to come up with stuff off of the top of their head, and that encourages confidence, which is interesting because that's what I've been doing with Morgan last year. Is we called them writing skits, and we'd write skits and share back and forth and practice speaking together, and Morgan had a role to read as opposed to her coming up with it off at the top of her head. Now, the students who are with Morgan all just seem very enthusiastic. Every single one of them is really into French, and I think that feeds off of, each kid feeds off the other in that regard. There isn't anybody dragging their feet or not wanting to be in the class. They're all there because they want to learn the language, which is just perfect. That is exactly what I was hoping for, and that's exactly what we got. The homework is light, however, and I think that that's necessary. It's maybe 20 minutes for Morgan or 25 minutes after the class. And that's just perfect. I think that's the sweet spot after you've already had an hour of class. Then you got 20 minutes to kind of do some stuff, and then you can load it in. And I wouldn't expect anything more at this juncture and at this age. I think it's just perfect for Morgan. Now, every class is recorded. So if you cannot make the class, you don't miss class. You can watch the recording and then do the homework from there. I don't plan on doing that any more than we absolutely have to, because I think it's important to be there to speak. But we missed class once, and that was really frustrating. So this will actually turn into a con later. So right now I'm kind of getting at the pros as well, how great it is. But if you do miss a class, you can watch the recording and see literally what everybody also typed or chatted. Because if you don't want to talk, you can chat off to the side. But speaking in French is encouraged. And then you can watch the entire video and then do the homework. But so here's what happened. We were really into our unit study in the afternoon and completely forgot about French class until it was, I think, 2 hours after it was completed. And I felt so bad. So the next morning, Morgan just watched the course or the class, and that was okay, but she didn't get enough out of it. She didn't get as much out of it as she would if she had been there with the teacher. So I really made that a lesson to myself to pay attention to the time and not miss any classes at all from now on, if at all possible. And it is nice to know that that's there if we need it, that if we miss a class, we really can catch up, but it really should be the extreme exception to the rule as opposed to doing that every time. Now, to get to the cons, to be clear, all of the cons are actually about me and not about the Well-Trained Academy. I can't believe how easy it has been for me to get into the mode of not caring about anybody else's schedule but my own. So I think maybe homeschoolers initially must have a really hard time showing up for things on time. We just kind of wing it and don't pay attention to the clock. And when we're done with the subject, we're done. I have to pay attention to the clock now that we have other things that are outsourced. And French isn't the only one, but we also are doing a fitness class and a tennis class. And Morgan's doing band, so we have to make sure to show up for that and kind of stop other activities. I wish, because of that, I wish the French was in the morning, because then it wouldn't interrupt our unit studies and kind of keep on to our schedule. But it's not about me, is it? But I will say, one of you wrote to me and said that you were outsourcing French and doing three or four 40-minute one-on-one sessions with a tutor online. And we did that last year with Alliance Française. We had a tutor, and that was really helpful because I negotiated the time that we were going to have each week in advance, 1 week in advance, just to kind of concur that it was going to occur on that day or time, but that I had the flexibility to move things around with the tutor one-on-one if we needed or wanted. We didn't miss a class, but sometimes we could move one around if it didn't work. I miss that a lot. And another thing about this is that just because Morgan and I are going on a break, because we're starting to do 6 weeks on and 1 week off, doesn't mean that the Well-Trained Mind Academy is going on a break. So even if we are taking a breather from school, we still have to show up for class. Now you could say, well, you could watch the recording, but Morgan still has homework that's due before the next class period. And so if we're off for a week, there's still 2 classes that she really does have to make and complete her homework. So it's just a little thing, but it's also, it's helpful to know that we have to adjust to other people's schedules. I will say that it was really wonderful last year doing our own thing, and it is very enticing again to go back to doing that. But Morgan really likes the Well-Trained Mind Academy, and I really like it too as a fantastic resource. In fact, I think I would like to do maybe 2 things and bring back the one-on-one tutor with Alliance Française, and on top of that, do the Well-Trained Mind Academy. So perhaps Monday would be a tutor, Tuesday would be French class, Wednesday would be a tutor, and Thursday would be French class. And then Friday would be French with me, or review, or reading, or writing, or something. And definitely Duolingo all the way throughout there. So, just an option, and those are things that I'm thinking about. But I do want to keep the Well-Trained Mind Academy as a resource. I foresee us taking the next French level up, but so there's French 1A and then French 1B, and then there's French 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I think French 1 is French 1A and B in 1 year. So I think it's the whole book compressed. So I don't know. Morgan could either redo the year and go through everything as a review with the teacher next year. I don't know if that would make her bored. Maybe then I think if you've done 1B, maybe you could jump straight into French 2. I don't know. I like that idea of having that as a class, especially if Morgan likes it. And I really like the idea of bringing in a tutor as well. So every year is going to be different. For sure, we're sticking with the Well-Trained Mind Academy this year. The entire year, we're going to go with it. We like it. And Morgan likes it, and she likes her teacher. It's hard for me to outsource something that I wish that I could teach, and I feel like I could teach it. However, I completely forgot to teach Morgan how to tell the time in French last year. It's a basic thing, right? A professional teacher who's done this before, who has the right curriculum, who's done that curriculum before and knows it in and out really, really well, there's a benefit to that. So Morgan won't have any gaps at all. And I think she benefits from having me as also a speaker who can help her if she's got a question on the spot instead of the teacher. But that's just, I don't know, that's not a pro or con, it's just an observation. So there's where we are with French. And I guess I could talk about world schooling. We're really enjoying planning it, and it's morphing and changing. And now the more that I think about it, the more I think it might be fun, instead of doing the month off or the month away during school that we were going to take and go overseas and travel. I can't help but feel there's something bothering me. It's in the back of my mind saying, but does it feel more like a vacation and less like education? And if we're going to take that long away from our regular school and not bring books, because I'm kind of teaching Morgan the idea or the art of vagabonding. I don't know if you've read the book, but it's pretty good. And I definitely have done my own fair share of vagabonding. But essentially it's, you throw it in a backpack and you go, and you don't drag stuff on wheels behind you. You learn to live like a native wherever you are and don't sort of stick out like a tourist thumb. And I want to teach Morgan that. So there is a lot to be said about it. But in our instance, going to French-speaking countries this coming year, the point is to speak French and to learn more French. So having said that, we're still going to plan, because I think it's great for geography and culture and learning how to do your own research. What we may do, however, is move that 3 weeks or 4 weeks out of the regular school year and into the summer, where we take time off and fly to France and go to an actual school. So we do French summer school. And there are several that will take Morgan and me as a family. And we both test that day. The first day you show up, you test, and the adults go into their level of classroom and the children go into their level of classroom. So the children are separated from the adults, and then the children are separated into capabilities, and the adults are separated into capabilities. And you go all morning, and then at lunch you pick up your kids from across the hall or across the atrium, and then you go have lunch and go spend the rest of the day sightseeing and traveling. And then that would be our time to learn the geography of the location and how to use a bus, how to take the train, all of that stuff. So we may do that. I don't know. I don't have to make that decision now. But if you have done something like that, please do let me know, and give me your comments and questions down below. Thanks for watching, you guys. See ya.